nobler for me to be killed by the Kauravas, and unarmed I'll face them and let them kill me. Such a state of pessimism, don't you think? So from here, we see that in the last shloka of that first chapter, we have this beautiful verse which says, he goes through shoka samvigna manasaha, where his mind, manasaha, is totally grief-stricken. Samvigna shokam, which indicates a high level of not just attachment, but also delusion or moha. So he's completely overpowered by this. And then he does sacharam chapam visrajya, which is giving up what his dharma was. He gives up his bow and arrow, and then he just sits down on his chariot seat. For a Kshatriya, a bow and arrow represents his dharma. How can he give up so easily? He just does a swadharma tyagaha, all due to the sense of moha and raga. So in life too, this is pretty much the basic thing that causes conflicts. When we decide to give up a responsibility or duty for the sake of what is in it for me. So that, in a sense, was a classic compromise that we saw with Arjuna. And this, my happiness is determined by so many of the people around me, and without whom I cannot live. And therefore, this is a clarion call, if you will, even for us when we go through our own issues in life. So I have a picture here, which I think you might be able to look at it and understand this. So it is just like an iceberg. So this is like a huge iceberg. I'm not sure if it is that big an iceberg which the Titanic hit, but you can see in this iceberg, there is about 1/3 which is on the surface, and there's this huge amount which is at the bottom. Okay. So in a sense, when we look at problem, we can think about this iceberg. So this 1/3 which is on the top is probably what Arjuna was looking at. He looked at the sight of his relatives, or possibly was it the lack of confidence in himself? Or was it something even deeper than this? You see, these are the things that typically show up on the top when we're looking at problems, but much more deeper is this aspect of everything tied to me and to my people, I and mine. If at any point in time in any of the problems that we face, we see this aspect of the I coming in, or any thought which has that I, or any thought which is what is in it for me, then that is where you see the major problem really rise. All the top, what you see are nothing but triggers. Just like you say in stressors, these are triggers. So, friends, we need to look at our own problems and see what is it which is just a trigger and what is it which is deeper. So this is why we see that if you compare it to the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, this small portion is just the first chapter, which gives you an idea of the aspect which is you can see, but what you cannot see, but what is really the problem is what the major teaching is going to be. And this is probably, we have one chapter located, one chapter devoted for the problem, which is what you see on the top. but the bulk of the Bhagavad Gita is actually on the teachings, which is aham esham mama ete. So these are things that we have to worry about. The top part of it, which is the conflicts which we face because of people close to us, possibly in our own family, or people whom we don't love, or even at work situations, people whom we get along with, people we don't get along with. Those are actually all the thing on the top. But the real problem is below, and that is something is the essence of what we are going to get to in this next chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So the first chapter, we saw Arjuna's problem, which exposed that inner weakness. And the second chapter, we find Arjuna surrenders and he becomes a spiritual seeker. And this is what we find, that the problem is first need to be identified before I try to change the world or improve the world. So our first reaction whenever we face any conflict is the problem is outside. Somebody else is the problem. I'm not the issue. But what Bhagavad Gita is trying to say is, look within yourself. The problem is deep under. And we need to look at that. So this is the background with which we move forward. And what was Lord Krishna's solution in the short term? Nothing. We saw that in many of the shlokas in first chapter, and we will see that in the beginning of the second chapter also, where Krishna really does nothing. But for the long term, he does have a solution for us, which is giving us the teachings of Bhagavad Gita to us. So the second chapter is titled as Sankhya Yoga. Just like in the first chapter, which we learned that it's called the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Vishada meaning the grief, yoga of grief. Here, Sankhya Yoga is, we'll see what it means. It basically means the Atma Jnana, the yoga of supreme knowledge, yoga of supreme self, you can call. It basically is Sankhya. The word Sankhya can mean Atma Jnanam, and it has got basically two etymologies. And it is Paramartha Vastu Viveka Vishaye Buddhihi Jnanam. So that is the yoga, or yoga of supreme self. Or another one is Samyak Khyayate Patyate Iti Sankhya. Para Vidyatayash Sankhya Pratipadyate Iti Sankhya. So it is about the Nirvishesham Param Brahma. Sankhya, the word Sankhya essentially means well defined. Samyak Kyanam Vakyanam, or Samyak means very well. So wherever there is a clear exposition, so in the second chapter is so complete in its way, in its chapter, where the entire, it is a beautiful foundation for all the chapters. So it basically, the whole Atma Jnanam is expounded so well in this, that it is a complete chapter by itself. And so therefore we'll be studying on this aspect of Atma Jnanam very deeply in this chapter. So the breakup of the chapter itself is from shlokas 1 to 10. The Arjuna Vishada continues, or the grief of Arjuna, it continues in this chapter to about 10th shloka. Then from 11 to 38 is the essence which is given here of the Sankhya Yoga. What exactly is this Atma Tattvam? That is given here. And then 39 to 53 gives you essentially how to prepare for really understanding how to prepare for Sankhya Yoga, how to be prepared, as a student, what kind of qualification I have to have, that is given here. And followed by a role model for us. How can we have this knowledge without knowing who is the kind of person we need to look at? What kind of person is he? What does he do? How does this person conduct in this world? So there we have the description of the man of wisdom, or the Jivan Mukti, or Sthita Prajna. So we have 4 topics, and these 4 forms this particular is the aspect of the second chapter. So we will see each one of them. We will be looking at a number of them. So in a sense, we see in this chapter a lot of ideas on how do I really live in this world? How do I deal with grief and sorrow? And how do I deal with positives and negatives in the world? Just like heat and cold, and pain and pleasure, and different aspects of the opposites, the pair of opposites. How do I deal with them? How do I deal with happiness? And how do I deal not just with my desires and expectations, but also with people who are dependent upon me? How do I deal with a lot of them? And in many cases, the shloka directly may not give that answer, but we will be analyzing it a lot with stories and even examples, maybe real-time examples we'll be taking for many of these shlokas, and we'll be studying with a lot of those. So in the first 10 shlokas, Arjuna becomes, we see the formation of Arjuna into a student. And so far, Krishna was a charioteer, and but then he becomes a teacher. Very soon you will see that, and then after that, when he becomes a teacher, he starts to expound on the Sankhya Yoga itself. So the chapter begins again, as you saw in the last shloka of the chapter 1, we had Sanjaya completing the chapter by explaining about Arjuna's condition, Shoka Vigna Manasaha. Now he starts the chapter again and introduces Lord Krishna as Madhusudana again to King Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripaya Vishtam Ashrupurna Kulekshanam Vishidantamidam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. So Sanjaya said, Tam Tatha Kripaya Avishtam, to him who was thus overcome with pity, Ashrupurna Akulekshanam, with eyes full of tears and agitated, Vishidantam idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha. So Madhusudana spoke these words. So who does Tam refer to here? Tam, to him. So here Tam refers to Arjuna. So Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra about the fact that to that Arjuna, we had Madhusudana. Madhusudana referring to Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna spoke. Now, why is he called Madhusudana? As you must have noticed, Lord Krishna has been given different names during different situations. And there's a reason for it. We have seen that. Each one of the names they actually signify a certain quality of Lord Krishna, which was necessary to be understood in the context of the shloka. So here too, the word Madhusudana is interesting because Madhusudana refers to Madhuvakyam Asuram Sudayati. That is the etymology of Madhusudana, which indicates that it is that person who destroyed or killed the Rakshasa called Madhu. So, what is the significance of it for Arjuna? So, here the significance is indirectly, it is meaning that, hey, Arjuna, you need to destroy all these sweet bondages. Madhu means sweet. And in a sense, it's a indirect way of asking Arjuna, telling Sanjay is referring to Krishna as Madhusudana to indicate this particular quality. And in Madhu Brahmana of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is another meaning for Madhu, which is one who destroys ahankara. So another way of also indicating what really is the identity that Arjuna needs to transform into. That is, he needs to give up his ego. So, and another meaning for Madhusudana is the one that is Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is referred to as Madhusudana. He's the one who's going to reveal my true nature, or Ananda Swarupa. So 3 different names for Madhusudana, just something to keep in mind. An interesting fact that to learn from these shlokas. So he's speaking to that Arjuna who is deep in sorrow. So let us see few more things about how Sanjaya is really introducing Arjuna to Dhritarashtra. So what kind of Arjuna is he? He is that Arjuna who is Kripaya Vishtam. Okay, I think I have the... Yeah, he is Kripaya Vishtam. I have the wrong shloka here. Okay. So he is... Yeah. So he is Kripaya Avishtam, the one who is so full of sorrow, in whom, and he is Ashrupurna Kulekshanam. Ashrupurna Kulekshanam, indicating that his eyes is full of tears, and he's full of tears, and he is so agitated, and he's so very despondent about this. So just indicating that here is Arjuna who, with his eyes, being so clouded, also giving an indication about the fact that his mind is clouded. And so he's not able to recognize where he is and what he's doing. So very interesting understanding about why, how he's being portrayed here. And Vishidantam idam vakyam. He's very despondent. He's very, he's unable to bear this sorrow. And to such a person, Lord Krishna talks to him. So that is basically the idea which is being told here. And so moving on to the next shloka. So to that Arjuna, now we see Lord Krishna trying to speak to him. So here, Krishna tries to, for the first time, as you can see in this, he starts to speak to him, not really as a teacher, but more as a friend. And because he was still a nice friend to him, he was, they were also related. And as we all know, Krishna tried his best to somehow work with Kauravas to get the land back for the Pandavas. But then that did not work, and it was Krishna who finally said that, well, there will have to be a war that cannot be avoided. So he was a very good negotiator, but there was nothing much he could do over there, and the war was going to start anyway. So that Krishna now starts to speak to Arjuna. He has heard enough from him. We saw the shlokas in this first chapter. And when he sees that Arjuna with tears in his eyes, which is so unbecoming of him as a warrior, he tells him, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kutastva Kashmalamidam, Kutastva Kashmalamidam, Vishame Samupasthitam, Vishame Samupasthitam, Anaryajushthamasvargyam, Anaryajushthamasvargyam, Akitikaram Arjuna, Akitikaram Arjuna. So you can see his opening words itself. He really doesn't approve of Arjuna. He says, hey Arjuna, Kutaha tva kutastvat kashmalam agatam, kashmalam samupastitam. Kutaha, from where? From where is this tears coming from? And he doesn't even necessarily call it tears. He says kashmalam. What is kashmalam? I know in Chennai, there are some words like that are used in the Tamil language. But here, kashmalam refers to basically an impurity. Okay? Impurity, which basically is how he's asking, where has this impurity come from you? Where has this, why are you crying like this? What is this negative thing which is hitting you here? What is it that you're looking at it in such, this is definitely not the place for you. This is wrong place, wrong timing, wrong occasion. Arjuna, wake up. You're talking about all these problems and all that. So Krishna probably heard enough of Arjuna, and he's thinking about all the things that he has told him about. Arjuna was telling about that the problems in this loka and that loka and so many different things. So everything he ties it up and he says, all this is just dirt which is unbecoming of you. So why are you doing this? In all these 28 years of my friendship with you, I have never seen you in this mood. So you need to wake up. Vishame samupastitam, which is, I've seen you in much, much greater dangers, and you're a born hero. How can you even get so dejected? This mood is totally unbecoming of you. So, and then he goes on to say, this kashmalam that he's referring to, he says, first of all, it is anarya jushtam. Anarya jushtam, unarya, which is, so what does the word arya mean? I know some of you must be thinking about this. Well, how does the word arya is coming here? Does this mean that the Aryan invasion was even before Bhagavad Gita? Well, logical question. I know in history books, it is not really given that way. But here, the word Arya is referring to a cultured person. A person who is well educated and who is very cultured and who has been following all the dharmic principles of life. Such a person is referred to as an Arya. Arya being a very noble person also. But Krishna is not calling him an Arya. He's calling him an Anarya. Anarya. Anarya indicating an unnoble person, ignoble person. So he's trying to wake him up and said, hey, Arjuna, don't be so ignoble. You can't be talking about something like this. And then he says, Aswargyam. You are thinking that you can actually go to heaven by not killing all these people? Let me tell you something, Arjuna. If you don't do your duty, you are not going to go to heaven, you're going to go to hell. Indirectly, he's saying this. Aswargyam, indicating indirectly, you will actually go to hell. So, clearly, Arjuna did not expect all these kind of shots from Krishna, right? So, Aswargyam, and then the other thing, Akirtikaram. Kirti. Kirti means glory. And here he's trying to tell Arjuna that Akirti, your glory itself will be blemished. Arjuna, you are such a great warrior. Everyone looks up to you, and you have had so many different accomplishments. Even during the war, when he was in exile, he was actually able to drive Karna and Bhishma and all of them. And now he's cutting such a sorry figure. So he said, Akirtikaram. He even tells, Gurudev in his commentary writes so beautifully about how that Krishna taunts Arjuna, saying that if you don't wake up and fight, guess what? Your name will go in all the history books as, did you know about that Arjuna who was the greatest warrior until he came to the war and then he just ran away? Do you want such a name for yourself? So wake up. This is not very good for you. This is definitely not becoming of you. So here, Krishna, as a friend, is trying to wake up Arjuna and remind him really what his duty is. And he doesn't leave him with that. He decides that he needs to give him an even stronger medicine. Just like a doctor, when we try to go to him saying that I just have a fever and the fever doesn't come down, then you're given a much stronger dosage of what is needed. So we see that Lord Krishna decides that Arjuna needs a much, much stronger medicine. So he doesn't let him go easily, and he continues with saying, Klaibyam masmagamah partha. Klaibyam masmagamah partha. Naitattvayupapadyate. Naitatvayi upapadyate. Shudram hridaya daurbalyam. Shudram hridaya daurbalyam. Tyaktvotishtha parantapa. Tyaktvotishtha parantapa. So he says, yield not to impotence, O Partha. It does not befit you. This mean weakness of heart, cast it off and stand up. Uttishta, stand up, O scorcher of foes, referring to Parantapa. Now, why does he call him Klaibyam Masmagamah Partha? So the word Klaibyam, basically, he's trying to say that, hey, Arjuna, you have lost all your strength. You have lost your manly ability. Klaibyam means a manly ability. And he says, this really does not go well with you. It doesn't benefit you at all. Nata etat tvayi upapadyate. That is, it does not go with you at all. Why does he say that? Because the word Arjuna, the word Arjanat Arjuna, or Rujitvat Arjuna, which indicates such a person with such great qualities. So he says, with you with such great qualities, how can you afford to be now in this position of not exerting your duty and fighting like a man? So he's almost, Krishna is trying to show that, just, I guess, as a simple example, it's like when somebody is really prepared to face an exam, he's all prepared and he's going there to face an exam, and suddenly he looks at the paper and he doesn't read the paper fully, the question paper. He just looks at the number of questions, and there's about 100 questions in there. And the guy just faints, right? The problem is this student did not look at the top where it says that answer any 20 questions. He is just not alert and looking, right? So here you see that Arjuna is shaking with, even though he has all the abilities and knows he can do a good job, but he's just not prepared, just not mentally prepared to look and be alert to what is the problem in front of him. And this kind of a situation we see in other places as well, like in Ramayana, for example. Even Lord Rama, when he was in the care of Vasishta ji, this is when he was much younger, even before he got married to Sita ji, he goes through a kind of a depression also. But then there, Vasishta ji actually gives him a different treatment. He actually reminds him of his nature, true nature, and then brings him out of his depression. So here, Krishna tries a different technique where Arjuna, being a Kshatriya, and he thought he should give him a much stronger blow to do this. So as you can see, Krishna was not quiet all the time. He was listening, and he was giving his blows when he needed it. The other reason for the word Clybium is, as some of you probably already know in Mahabharata, how Arjuna was actually took the role of a dance teacher, Brihanala. And so indirectly, Krishna is probably reminding him that, hey, are you reminded of being a dance teacher again? You need to get out of that. And the story is very interesting in that how he even became a dance teacher. It so happened that once Arjuna went to the Devaloka, and over there, Urvashi wanted to marry him. But Arjuna refuses. And because he refused, Urvashi, puts a curse on him, saying that, he'll have to be basically in the form of this in the form of a eunuch for about a year. And he could actually, I guess, use that time at any point in time. And he decides to take that position of the eunuch when he was a dance teacher as a Brihana in the Virat kingdom. So this word, so he asks, so you see now, and so Krishna is indirectly reminding him about, don't be that way. Klibaha is also basically to say Klibaha Swabhava Mastu. You don't have that stamina for it. So don't act effeminate, don't act weak, and try to wake up and fight. And then he says this Shudram Hridaya Daurbalyam. Shudram, meaning that meanness of Hridaya. Hridaya means heart. Why are you behaving this? Why do you have this meanness of heart? It just doesn't become of you. Just get up and fight and do your dharma. That is the only way you can actually do something. And again, indirectly, Krishna is trying to tell him that the problem is not somewhere else, the problem is within you, and you have to get up. Uttishta. Uttishta indicating get up and stand and don't shiver. This just doesn't become of you. And then stand up and then fight. So again, this is also, we can look at it in our own lives, that whenever we go through a situation where I find that I'm blaming someone else for my own problems, I have my own Lord Krishna in my heart who's trying to tell me that no, I need to be alert and I need to see how I can solve my problem. I shouldn't succumb to any kind of depression and try to work out my problems. So that is a sort of a teaching even for us on how to handle our own problems here. So after Krishna gives only these 2 shlokas, Arjuna feels that now he has to speak out again. So he starts to, speak and to basically to give his own viewpoint here. He's probably thinking in his mind that, Lord Krishna was probably a cowherd boy. He really didn't had to go through all the problems that I was going through. And how does he know what my thoughts are? So he starts to say the next shloka here. Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna uvacha. Katham bhishmamaham sankhye. Katham bhishmamaham sankhye. Dronam cha madhusudana. Dronam cha madhusudana. Ishubhi pratiyotsyami. Ishubhi pratiyotsyami. Pujahar varisudana. Pujarha varisudana. So he must have thought, Lord Krishna didn't have to fight against a teacher, and he probably didn't have to fight against his own grandfather, Bhishma Pitamaha. So he says, "Oh Krishna, I'm trying to see, did he give a different Madhusudana?" So here he addresses him again as Madhusudana. So Arjuna says, "Oh Madhusudana, Katham Bhishmam Maham Sankhye Dronam cha." How can I engage myself in this battle with Bhishma Pitamaha? Bhishma Pitamaha, who actually took care of me from the time when I was a child, along with all these 100 Kauravas and the 5 Pandavas. He took care of him as one of the most respected member of the family. How can I really engage in a battle with him? And then how about Drona too? Drona is a person, Drona Acharya is my teacher who taught me the art of warfare. And how can I even how can I do that? And so, so this is definitely not something that I want to do. These are all such gracious people. They're such elderly people, and they have such great, rich experience. Sorry, I think I went to my next shloka here. Oh. Yeah. So he says, how can I even fight them with this Ishubhi? Ishubhi, which is the arrows, but they are meant to be really to be revered. They're meant to be done puja. I have to do puja to them. How can I even do something like this? Krishna must be thinking, Arjuna, where is your puja plate? You're talking about doing puja to them. You came here to fight. You came here with your bow and arrows, not your puja plate. They have decided to stay on the other side. It was not your choice. They decided that. So who are you to say that now that you cannot fight with them? So he tries, Krishna must be just shaking his head and thinking, this, he's not learning very soon here. So I need to do something about it, right? So clearly, again, Arjuna's, trying another mode to convince Krishna here about, I guess this is probably the first time he is telling Krishna about his teachers. And he wants to find out if Krishna can be swayed with that. But Krishna is not going to be is not going to be swayed by this, right? So then we continue with Arjuna saying, talks a little more about his teachers now. And he says about, again, in his mind, his deluded mind, he's looking at, okay, what would happen if he were to kill his teachers, right? So this is a different tune here. And I will sing this in a different tune here. Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan. Guruna hatva hi mahanubhavan. Shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke. Shreyo bhoktum bhaikshyamapi haloke. Hatvarta kamamstu guruni haiva. Hatvartha kamamstu guruni haiva. Bhunjiya bhogan rudira pratikdhan. Bhunjiya bhogan rudira pratikdhan. So Arjuna is trying to again convince Krishna by saying that instead of slaying my teachers who are most noble, it is better to eat the bread of beggary. For even here in this world, for the sake of wealth and desire, if I kill my teachers, then those very objects of enjoyment I wish to enjoy will be stained by their blood. What is he trying to say here? Krishna is again must be shaking his head here. He's having killed. If I were to kill my guru here, who actually taught me to how to hold this bow and the arrow, and how what will I get out of this? Shreyo bhoktum bhaikshmavapiha loke. It is better for me, for my own shreya, it is much more nobler for me to take a begging bowl rather than killing such people. This word begging bowl, he's almost, some of the commentators have interpreted the shloka to say that we see Arjuna wanting to run away, not just run away, but actually run away all the way to the Himalayas and become a sannyasi. Because that's what he's saying. He wants to take a begging bowl. So in our Shastras, there are only, the Grahasthas are the ones who are totally excluded from getting into taking the begging bowl or begging for food. They are the ones who are actually supposed to support all the three ashramas, the Brahmacharya, the Vanaprasthi, and the Sannyas clan also. But here you have Arjuna, who is a Grahasthi, is wanting to run away and even beg for food. And so yet another way for Arjuna to trying to see how much more desperate can he really get, right? So he's trying to show that these are all great people, Mahanubhava. And to such people, I don't really want to kill them. And if I do that, which is I'm doing it for the sake of my own wealth and desire, if I do kill such great teachers, then I will I will not survive. And so whatever I do will be stained by the blood. So pretty strong words for Arjuna to say here. But we see that Krishna is still not going to be swayed by this. So we'll do just one more shloka here and then we will stop. Now we see that Arjuna continues with saying, Na chaitat vidmah kataranno gariyah. Na chaitat vidmah kataranno gariyah. Yadva jayem yadi vano jayeyuhu. Yadva jayem yadi vano jayeyuhu. Yaneva hatva na jijivishamaha. Yaneva hatva na jijivishamaha. Tevastitha pramukhe dhartarashtraha. Tevastitha pramukhe dhartarashtraha. So he finishes the argument here by saying, I can scarcely say which is better, that we should conquer them or they should conquer us. Because after slaying whom we would wish not to live, they standing naming us, namely that is the sons of Dhritarashtra. How can we stand facing them? So we will do a little more elaboration next week on the shloka, and I will complete here because I was thinking that I'll try to finish this in 45 minutes and then open it up more for questions. So if you have any questions, we can discuss now, or I can end the lecture and you can send it to me. And from next week, I can address those. Okay, so if there are no more questions, then I will complete the lecture for today. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamada purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.